I had actually had a moment where I sat down with myself and I'm like, this week I'm going to be radically honest with everyone in my life, myself primarily. And I let go of the studio, which I held a lot of identity to. I felt like, that gave me worth, that made me look cool. That was this young guy with a cool space.
Yeah, I get that.
And so let go of that. We let go of a couple of staff. I broke up with my partner at the time. We'd been together 4 years, and all of this changed in 3 days.
Oh God.
And I mean, it was needed, and I think that's a principle I've really tried to lead with every day since, is that honesty, but mostly with myself.
Quickly though, before this episode starts, I've got a 10-second favor that I'd like to ask you. The majority of people watching this podcast haven't yet hit the follow button. I can't tell you how much it helps. The show gets bigger, which means we can increase our production, and also allows us to bring in some of the best guests that you want to see, while allowing us to continue to do the thing that we love. Thank you so much for your time. Chai, welcome to the podcast. How are we doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. I came across the videos very recently and really love what you're doing. I loved your approach to things. So just thought I'd reach out. It seems like we have a very interesting and similar life path we may have been going down. So I'm keen to dig into that a little bit down the line.
Yeah, we were just chatting off air. I wonder how much you're going to share on what's recently happened with you.
We'll see. We'll see how much we get out. We'll see how much we get out. Well, getting stuck into it, if you were to explain an elevator pitch of you, explaining who you are, what you do, and how you're contributing to the world, how would that look?
I have tried many things in my life. I failed at most of them, figured out a few of them. And part of that journey has been mostly a journey of learning, like just being in spaces where I can learn and around people I can learn. And I guess that took me to what I'm working on now, which is, I'm sure we'll get into, but it's essentially a private network for lifestyle founders. And selfishly for me, I want to be in rooms with people I can learn from, but also for other people in the broader world, just like being involved and helping people create lives that they're proud of and lives that they want to show up in. I think the world changes so radically over time. And, my parents are school teachers, and they always wanted us to have more opportunities than maybe they had, or just different options. And so they encouraged us to think outside of the traditional pathways. And so maybe that passion has carried on for me, helping one or two other people to do the same, and connecting with those people along the way. So that's a bit of background.
Yeah, brilliant. You mentioned in some previous kind of interviews that you lived on an island for a while. You've been in Perth. You've been overseas for a bit. Is that correct? What was that like?
Yeah, I'll give you the short version, I suppose. But I grew up in a big family. There was 7 kids, 7 of us, and a large part of that childhood was on an island called the Cocos Keeling Islands, which is off the West Australian coast. And we spent maybe half of my 7 or 8 years growing up there, and a very unique place, but also a weirdly like safe space to explore and find yourself. And we thought it was normal at the time, and then it's only years later where you realize how good you had it. I went back there when I was probably 18, for another stint. My family was back up there, and that time was like I'd finished high school and I stepped away from friend circles and just started wearing what I wanted to wear, talking how I wanted to talk, like really able to step into the version of myself that I actually wanted to be. And that was something that really was like pivotal in my life. And I've tried to implement many times since, which is just a radical change in environment to change yourself along that way.
So what caused your family to move to the island?
Both my parents are school teachers, so they would get contracts up there for usually 3 years at a time. Mostly my dad, my mum was just busy having kids the whole time. And yeah, so, 3-year stints, and then you go back 2 or 3 times. But there was a big gap in between, 15 years in between when we weren't there. So it was just like sporadic and adventurous and just something different, than the normal. So.
And you said you were one of 7 That's a pretty big family. Where are you in that family dynamic?
I'm number 2. So
second oldest.
Yeah, I'm 25 right now. And we're all about 2 years apart as you go down. 4 boys, 3 girls.
Yeah, brilliant. And how did that affect your way of kind of living?
I thought you were about to ask, how did that happen? I was going to say,
when a mummy and a daddy love each other very much.
Sorry, what was your question?
So how did that impact the way you lived your life?
This is funny. Like, there's so many elements that come into it. I think the one thing that comes to mind straight away is like the natural scrappiness and, growing up in crowded homes and cluttered furniture and kind of, we didn't even care if we slept on the floor. Like, there's kind of that nature of nothing is too good. Like, we can always, or nothing is too poor, I suppose, as well. And, you can just make it work. So partly that, partly the competitive nature of like, when you're served dinner and you pretty much got to get in first, otherwise you might miss out. And, we've always grown up playing sports and a lot of our siblings were quite competitive, but in a friendly way now. So those things maybe that have carried on further in my life, I actually couldn't really imagine growing up in like as a single child or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be a completely different environment, right? Completely different way of approaching the world. Yeah. I get that scrappiness. And you think it's outed to your business acumen?
Yeah, I think it gave me perspective probably. And then also there's been times, where real opportunities have been created because I was okay with, I don't know how to describe this. For example, I spent a month in Portugal earlier last year with a house of 7 or 8 founders, and we just trained together, ate together, worked online together. And, we kind of shared rooms, and it was like this whole school camp type vibe, which, some people, at least I imagine, who maybe didn't experience a more of a scrappy upbringing, maybe wouldn't have been so comfortable in those situations to share rooms with people and just like get messy with it. So because of that, you come out with a very different bond with people. And I think that's something that's lived through time.
For sure. I wonder on the other side, what do you think has been some of the downsides in your life of having 6 other siblings and living on an island for a big part of your developmental years?
For me personally, it was, this is true to everyone has limiting beliefs, and childhood plays a huge part in that. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about that because it's so relevant to us as human beings now and where we show up and where we don't show up. And like parts of that were definitely financial limiting beliefs. We were on one teacher's income with a house of 9 people for a large part of that. And, you'd shop the sales section and you would buy clothes at the op shop, not because it's trendy, but because it's cheap. Stuff like that where, later on in life as I got into business and developed in different projects, it held me back big time. I had ceilings that I didn't feel worthy of earning more than certain amounts, earning more than my parents, things like that really held me back, and maybe just like made it slower to break through. But, with enough awareness and repetition, I think you can kind of push those ceilings over time.
And when you say limiting beliefs, so how did you, well, actually, let's take a step back for the listeners. You've done quite a few solid kind of things in the business front specifically. You've got, 6-figure following on your social media. You've ran a 7-figure e-commerce business, right? You've ran another 7-figure marketing agency, and now you're starting the new project. So you've had a few wins under your belt in a very short amount of time, which, you should be commended for. It's great. Like, awesome work getting to that point. And I feel like it's just the beginning. Being young and having success, I know there's a lot of issues that pop up and you're developing yourself as you go. It's like you haven't got yourself set yet. So who you are maybe 5 years ago and who you are now are completely different people. So on the topic of limiting beliefs, what beliefs did you have or have you had recently, and what have you done to break through them?
Yeah, good question. Well, I guess I'll touch on I've got more recent ones that I can tell you about. So the new project, is, I touched on it earlier, but it's essentially a highly vetted private network for founders, bringing them together and putting them in rooms together to kind of build friendship, but also network and get tactical advice and feedback. And then also doing in-person houses where we can co-live and work, and there's an online community too. So it's cool. It's like the holy grail of kind of business potentially for me, where it ticks a lot of the boxes. And interestingly with that, when before I launched, I basically wrote a list of 100 founders in my network or friends of friends. And I reached out to them just to get on the phone and purely for feedback before I even had a product ready. I just wanted to understand their actual needs. And I ended up speaking to about 50 before I had enough information. And interestingly, I found that process to be quite difficult from a limiting beliefs perspective, because these were people that a lot of them I admired, 7 or 8 years ago when I was just consuming as a teenager, scrolling socials, and now in some way I'm connected with them or whatever it might be. And to go to those people to ask for advice or just feedback, or potentially pitch them into, I don't like the word pitch. I think, invite them into the space as well if they wanted to be a member. That was something that I didn't feel worthy of in a lot of cases, because I looked up to the people. So that was something I had to overcome. And I think the way to push through that is, first of all, having people within my close circle that I could go to and speak to about that stuff, because outside perspective is very valuable. It's like when you have, if you were experiencing a certain problem and someone came to you and said, hey, this is Adam down the street, not Adam, someone else down the street who is having this problem and blah, blah, blah. You remove the person out of the context. You remove Adam out of the context and give them the exact same situation. And you probably know exactly what to do in that situation. You're probably, oh yeah, I'll do this, this, and this. And then you're like, hold on a second, this is the situation for me right now. But it's very hard to give that advice to yourself. So that was a long-winded way of saying, I think having those people who can be radically honest with you, having those people in your back pocket is a huge lever. And then just trying to go back to your roots and believe in the process and know that it's worthwhile, and believe in what you're working on, I think is huge. Actually truly believing that it's worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, I kind of resonated with something. I've recently started this podcast. We're about 36 or 38 episodes in. Yeah. And it's been surprising to me how people that I admire, and, the podcast doesn't quite have a huge following yet, but people that I admire or consume their content or look up to, I'll just cold DM them and they'll say, yeah, I'm in. And it kind of blows me away a little bit, and it makes me realize how small the world is and how much more access you have to people around you as long as you just ask.
And you're willing to be rejected too. No, yeah. I've been rejected quite literally hundreds of times, hundreds of messages. I'm just talking just for this project, people that weren't quite suited for it. And that's something, when you're so passionate about something and you believe in it so much, you're like, why can't this person believe in this thing or feel the need for it too? But you just have to realize they're on their own journey. It's a timing thing, and alignment will happen if it's meant to. So,
yeah, exactly. And do you know Danny Miranda by any chance?
Yeah.
So I interviewed him a few days ago. Which is sick. And he's just like, that dude's like a weapon.
Yeah. I listened to a bunch of his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's really solid. And he was just talking about just putting in the work and then people coming to him. And he said that the 75 hard guy that he interviewed, he said Gary Vee, when he interviewed him, they came to him. Which is wild. And they came to him off the back of him just doing good things for people around him without the expectation of anything.
That's something that Alex Hormozi talks a lot about. It's like if you can just
and Alex. He did Alex as well.
Oh, did he? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Truly just lead with value and actually don't expect anything in return. A lot of people might say they want to do that, but they actually kind of do expect something. Underrated if you're willing to put in the time.
Do you think you do that?
It's something I try to practice for sure. And, it's one of those things that you just, it's like when you've got, how do I explain it? When you've got heaps on your plate and other stuff going on, and you've got excuses, and you're like, oh, I would rather just take the shortcut and get the value for myself. That's the reminder. That's surrounding yourself with the right people to remind you that just play the long game and give value, and it'll come back to you in some form. That it'll create opportunities in some way.
Yeah, for sure. And well, with that in mind, what do you think is the kindest thing someone's ever done for you?
The kindest thing, I want to say looking after themselves, because I think you can't really give to other people until you look after yourself, or your cup's full and you can give from the overflow. And for someone to truly be in a space to be present, they give to themselves, and then we can have a really present conversation that goes deep, and it's not surface level, and it's not all the the stuff that actually doesn't matter. So I would almost say that's the kindest thing, is serving themselves so that we can be present.
Have you got like a specific scenario where someone's done something for you that has not asked for anything back, and it's just been, you've looked back and gone, wow, that was crazy?
Yeah. Well, we actually had this was back running the e-commerce brand. We were looking for some advice, and this came from a couple of people actually, but one in particular, and Pete is his name, and we paid him for a call. We actually just said, hey, we got a $300 budget. Would you be willing to get on the phone with us? And he said, well, normally I charge a lot more than that, but yeah, sure, let's run it. Let's have a conversation. And we went into that call just expecting him to jump on and just have a 30-minute kind of fire away questions and whatnot. He came in with this plan that must have taken him 3 hours to, I swear. Like he'd built out customer avatar. He'd written, like, there was pages of notes. And I really admired that about him, because he didn't expect, we were paying him a small amount, but he didn't expect more than that. He didn't expect us to even, he just gave so much upfront value, because I don't know why he did it, to be honest, the good of his heart. I've since followed up with him and had a few conversations, and he's always led with that. So that was something I admire, and that's something I try to give to other people as well when those situations come up.
I'm guessing, was he like significantly successful, and you were kind of like punching up on that?
Yeah, he'd done a bunch of stuff. He'd owned a very successful branding agency. He was a big investor in a bunch of things, and he just understood e-commerce and brand building very well, and that's why we sort of reached out to him and connected with him on Twitter. I think it was my co-founder at the time was friendly with him. So actually, that's probably another example. My co-founder, he had a stretch of time where he'd never really been deep in the social game, building personal brand or anything like that. He was just really consistent at showing up, and he used to do this thing on Twitter where every single day he used tools and stuff, but just go through and just engage and comment and give value and expect nothing in return. And he was showing up, and it was a very small micro following, but he was so well connected with some really interesting guys. Pete was one of them. And that was probably the reason Pete gave us the light of day, potentially, because in many ways, Cami had given him value somehow before that. So it's funny how that exchange happens, and probably you could trace it back so far in every relationship you have.
What do you know what tools he was using? Because I'm just getting very early into Twitter.
Tweet Hunter or something, I think it was.
What does that do?
Maybe it wasn't that. It was like, it kind of compiled everything, your whole feed, and you could put in the list of people that you want to follow and engage with, and then basically it'll just show their posts, and so you can tick them off as you go, and they'll disappear. And so you can just very consistently show up and engage with everything that's in front of you. Yeah, it was good. I'll get the name of it.
Yeah, please. I love it. Have you had much luck on the Twitter front? I've just got started in exploring it. I never really, in Australia, it doesn't seem like a thing too much.
Yeah, I back when I was running the agency, I had one tweet kind of go viral-ish and gain a couple of thousand followers, and that was just like, again, giving value, that one. But it does seem like a science. It's like, I actually think with anything, we could probably talk about content in general and social media and viral videos and whatever else, but there's a science behind all of it. There is leading with creativity, of course, and having some originality, but doing things that have proven and have worked before and then making them your own, that's super underrated. So I would just model from other people initially, make it your own. And then, there was times where I filmed a video on my little old cinema camera when I first got it. And on Instagram, I posted it, didn't really do much. On TikTok, it went nuts, like 4 or 5 million views. And I remember like, interesting, like this is consumable content. People like this. It should work again, right? And so I went back to Instagram a week later and I posted it again, which for starters, a lot of people wouldn't even do because that perfectionism, they don't want to do that. But I was like, no, I know this is good content. So I put it out again. It kind of flopped again, relatively speaking. I was like, interesting. I tried one more time. I changed the sound a bit. Nothing. And then like a two months later, I was like, you know what? I know this shit's good. I'm gonna try it again. And I put it up and it got 5.9 million views on Instagram this time. And I was like, that's
Why?
like the power of getting, I guess maybe that's the scrappiness. Maybe that's the, when you consume enough, you kind of get a bit of an eye for things. You kind of understand, this perspective, this shot, this angle, this hook. I know hits in some form, and maybe it didn't hit this time, but it will hit again in the future. So be willing to do that over time.
Well, how did you know that this wasn't bad and the market was telling you otherwise?
Because when I first posted it on Instagram, it did nothing. On TikTok, it went crazy. So I knew. So
you were kind of like, you knew, yeah.
Yeah. So I knew that it was consumable, and I knew ultimately every short form platform is somewhat similar in how people consume content. Of course, there's a lot of differences too. So. And really interesting, now I can break down, I can pretty much film, like I could be out there filming a clip and I'm like, I know this is going to perform. I know this is going to get a million or whatever it is, which is almost a hack, right? Like when you get to the point of just understanding your audience very specifically. And I think it's getting to that point. So a lot of people, I think the point I was getting at was a lot of people say, create, don't consume. I'm like, no, like consume just as much as you create, because just consume with intention. Do it with intent and not just mindlessly. And you can really win that way.
Well, I think I resonate with that on the podcast front, because all I do with my spare time is listen to podcasts. It's pretty much, it's podcasts, audiobooks, and dating. Like that's it, in that order.
Yeah.
And, I've listened to hundreds of episodes of probably Tim Ferriss and Diary of a CEO and just all of them. And now I'm doing this and I'm taking little pieces from them and going, oh, that's fun. Let's pinch that.
Yeah. And like questions to ask and how they title the videos, what they start with, there's heaps of things you can learn. Yeah. Love that.
I haven't gotten that far into it yet. I haven't gotten into the depths of how to title everything. And we haven't had anything go viral yet, but maybe once this episode comes in, you can dig into it and see what you think. And
I think
some insight.
Potentially, and I don't know the podcast space that well, but my guess is it's the short form video, so you can pull from the podcast, those clips work, and it drives traffic to the podcast, and then that's just like that kind of consistent cold audience that grows slowly over time. I know my first million guys were talking about this, and they literally said the same thing, like. They had over time a lot of the shorts and YouTube shorts and other videos went crazy and it was volatile and some things were huge. But they said the actual podcast listeners was like just radically consistent the entire time, like regardless of how hard they pushed or what they wanted to do, it was just doing its thing. So I wonder if that's the same.
Yeah, I think the podcast is just like a slow grind and a slow build. And I've been talking with my producer a bit on it. He's a big analytics guy. I just kind of go, I'm going to film the episodes. I'll leave the rest up to you. And he just sends me these messages and says stuff like, we've grown 30% in the last week on our Instagram. And I look at it and I go, yeah, cool. That's from like 250 to 300. You know what I mean? But then if you think about it, that percentage change can also occur at 1,000 to 1,300 and 100,000 to 130,000.
Yeah. Also, out of those 50 people, it only takes one person to really create. Maybe that one person is, in your case, you already spoke to Danny Miranda, but maybe it's someone like that, where you can create real impact in your work because of it.
That came off the back of a very serendipitous and strange interaction. So
what's the story?
I lived in New York for about 5 months this year and another 6 weeks last year. I'm hoping to get my visa and get over there for a bit more of a permanent stint this year. And I met a guy through the producer who lives in New York. We were there. We met a guy. We went to his house for some random reason. We just hung out for a little bit. He had a podcast. We started talking. We got along. He came on my podcast and I said, hey, anyone you recommend? And he said, yeah, cool. Get my housemate. So his housemate comes on the podcast. We do an episode. And then that's kind of that. And then I come across Danny's work. I'm like, yeah, this guy's a jet. I love what he's doing. I love, like, he's batting away above his average. His content's content's A1. How is he doing it? So I've kind of just started taking a bit more of a focus on his work. And the next thing you know, the guy that I did the podcast with puts up a short form clip on, like, hey, I'm with Danny Miranda and we're talking about how to do a podcast. What the fuck? So I DM'd him and said, hey, bro, can you intro me?
Yeah.
And he said, let me ask. And then they introed and then he came straight on the podcast.
Oh, shit. There you go.
Just
it's
a lot of...
It's crazy how, I mean, that was just like a few layers. It probably goes like, how did you end up in New York? There's so many layers deeper to that. One decision that you probably made when you were 3 years old, I don't know, that led to that moment, right? And there's the infinite amount of these moments happening for us in our lives. And I find that so fascinating.
Do you think that there's opportunity everywhere you look and it's irrelevant of the decisions you're making, because you'll end up with like there's just so much out there that you could be doing that you'll eventually hone in on things.
Totally. And you probably create your own luck in a lot of those situations because, I mean, in your case, you could have just not DM'd the dude that you knew and you never would have spoken to Danny. Like, if you weren't willing to ask for the intro, that never would happen. So, yeah, definitely.
There's a book that that I read in 2018 called The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And
I haven't read that.
It's really interesting. She's a singer. She was in a band, and she basically talked about how she went through her life with the ability to ask for things. And historically, I'm getting better. Historically, I was unable to ask because if I asked for things, I would be a failure and I wouldn't be able to do it myself. So this has been a new thing that's come into my life, just this ability to go, you know what, I don't know and it's okay and I'm just going to ask and I might look silly and that's okay. And life has begun to improve in a lot of ways and I've gotten myself in situations where I probably shouldn't be there, but just happened to ask the question.
Yeah. And this is something I've had a similar journey. And I think if you can ask yourself, what is the worst case situation right here? They first of all say no, they decide they don't like me. Maybe they block me on socials. Okay. Worst case situation, over. If I'm okay with that, then how does the ask hurt, So it's funny. Yeah.
You know what it came from? Being in a small town, like being born and growing up in a small town and being kind of...
Where did you grow up?
Geelong. So
okay, yeah.
It's not the smallest town, but it's small enough.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just called you out on the pod.
That's fine, dude.
No, I'm kidding. I actually don't know the East Coast very well, so
it's like 150,000 people, and then another probably 150,000 surrounding. Big enough. However, it's a small town mentally, and for a long time, I was pretty ahead of the curve on things. Like I was leading the pack on a lot of like event business stuff, and I was kind of looked up to by people, and some people were envious, and then I had some haters, and it's just, the whole spectrum of all of it was in that small town. So I found that I didn't want to ask for help because I had this image in my head that I needed to maintain, because if I was asking for help, then I was not a winner. I was not winning. I was like a failure in this weird way.
That's so relevant, and actually a large part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, which is I think that's the case for a lot of high performers, high achievers, but founders. You're the one, especially if you have a team, etc. You're the person that has to keep the head screwed on. Don't have a lot of people to actually go to and speak about the real challenges in business, and I don't know if you're willing to share it, but I'm more than happy to share some of the moments I've been hit in the face with things and lost a lot of money, and there's been moments and I didn't feel like I had anyone to turn to, but that was potentially just pressure put on myself,
Yeah, for sure. We can jump into that in a little bit. I'll let's talk about it. Run me through what has happened in the past with you and what story you were talking about.
Well, yeah, the specific story, a little bit of context. I was, I guess since I was like 19, 20, I've been in the creative space a long time, videographer, kind of just making travel films and then working with brands, shooting stuff. And at some stage I was like, oh, I don't want to be living on people's couches anymore. I was just trying to travel as much as I could and make just enough to get by. And so I settled in North Rio here in Perth and started Brand Booster, which was the creative agency. And it grew pretty quick. Like the team sort of grew from just me on my dining room table to we had 13 staff in-house at one point, and we had a studio, and we basically would shoot video and photo content for brands for their marketing. And 2 years of like things just working, and of course there was failures along the way, but and the 1 year prior to that where I was just in the trenches making no money, sitting at my desk 10 hours a day, but made it through that and got to this point where we kind of plateaued. At the time, we were probably doing about $1 million a year with the agency, and we plateaued, but expenses were through the roof. We had, like I said, 13 people on, probably doing a job that 5 or 6 really cool people could have been doing. I was probably too much of a nice guy. I wanted to try to keep everyone on. We had a huge overhead with our rent of the place we were renting. And anyway, that year we made $1 million, but we spent 1.2 almost. Quite literally negative. It was $140,000, $150,000 in the bank account by the end of the year. And I didn't have that money, and that felt like such a slap in the face because it felt like I'd gone backwards from the whole 2-3 years that I've been working up to that point. There was times where I had to come up with 15 or 20 grand to pay payroll within sort of 4 or 5 days. And I do think the times that your back's against the wall, you push harder than ever, but also as this young, ambitious person, it felt like I had, lost time, lost energy, lost what I could have been making in that time. It was all like ego-driven outcomes. But anyway, we leaned down. I actually had a moment where I sat down with myself and I'm like, this week I'm going to be radically honest with everyone in my life, myself primarily. And I let go of the studio, which I held a lot of identity to. I felt like, that gave me worth, that made me look cool. That was this young guy with a cool space.
Yeah, I get that.
And so let go of that. We let go of a couple of staff. I broke up with my partner at the time. We'd been together 4 years, and all of this changed in 3 days.
Oh God.
And I mean, it was needed, and I think that's a principle I've really tried to lead with every day since, is that honesty, but mostly with myself. And anyway,
did you curl up into a ball at any point and go?
Weirdly enough, I think once I started making those decisions, it felt like alignment. Like, I was probably 8 or 10 months too late I should have made those decisions much, much sooner, which is why we lost all the money. But anyway, we came out of that. We kind of turned it around. We ended up breaking even on what we'd lost. And that was another year process. And then I ended up moving on from that business. But I was mentally worst place I'd been for a long time, probably ever in my life. And that was a tough thing to also go through solo. I had some friends and partner and stuff at the time that could support, but no one really knew what was going on,
What did you do in that time period to get through it?
Well, we leaned down. That was like a big first step.
I mean mentally.
Oh, mentally. Yeah.
To push forward.
Good question. It was a combination of, definitely like training consistently and doing the things that give you balance in life, like help just keep a level head. But also knowing that you're progressing. I think that's a big one. As long as you feel like you're continuously moving towards this outcome or point, then you could probably keep moving. It's those times where things feel very stagnant and you don't know what to do. That's the hardest part. As soon as you get clarity on like what how do I turn this thing around? Clarity is like the holy grail. So that was a big thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we were talking off air about the situation that I'm in as well, and when you say clarity makes it clear to, it gives you motivation. That's been the big challenge for me, is my guts said, this feels wrong, but I don't know what else to be doing with my time. So I'm just going to keep doing this out of maybe what felt like obligation and potentially fear of just having something else not being able to do something else and having people that doubt you be like, yeah, we were right. This guy sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, I've made it 10 times worse, which, for context, I've ran this event business for maybe 6 or 8 years now. We started properly in about 2015. And it's been a pretty solid, fun. It's never made crazy money, but it's been like high gross margin for 6 figures comfortably for a while. Just easy.
That matters too. I will point that out. Is like revenue means shit. Like you saw it in my example. Build profitable businesses, even if that's like small businesses. That's the way to go.
Yeah. So it was like high profit margins, low revenue, low work to get it done. And we worked in the club space for a while, and that was great. And then I was consulting and then doing some pop-up shows, which were crushing. And then those kind of began to falter over COVID. I lost a lot of my footing. From 2019, I was crushing. And then 2020 onwards, I've kind of just been like a bit all over the place. Mentally, my head's in a different space. Like I've moved very far into health, wellness and spirituality. And then it hasn't really aligned with running clubs and drinking and drugs. Like I've been sober I've stopped drinking and I haven't had a drink in like nearly 450 days now.
Whoa, congrats.
And not because I had a problem. I just was like, I don't really need this anymore. And I might start again tomorrow. I don't know. But like for now, I'm chilling. But the point I'm making is that it hasn't been aligned since after all the COVID stuff. And I've kind of been moving forward with like some success, but then not as much and as normal. And a lot of the contracts and opportunities I had previously have closed the doors on me. And then I felt like some other opportunities have come up and they seemed okay. But I went against what I normally would do, which was low risk. Don't overcapitalize, just like start small, build. Instead I've gone 0 to 100 and gone from like new market, let's do a 5,000 person festival. Great. Brought in new business partners. Business partners had no money. They've gone bust. I've been left holding the bag, $130,000 gone in one event. And then the things that were working stop working because I'm putting all of my time and energy into this thing that isn't working. So
big identity shift, it sounds like.
Oh man. And then that was March. So ran 2 shows. One of them, my core market was okay. Like we lost a little bit of money, whatever, like lesson learned. But the new market blew up like 6 figures. And I was 50-50 partners with a guy. He didn't have the money to cover his share. So he had 50% of the upside and 0 downside because he's just like pissed off. And I didn't understand the game to keep him accountable. And I was too much of a nice guy to be like, you know what, I'll cover this. Like just let's figure it out on the back end. Figuring out on the back end meant I've fucking eaten my hat.
I hope this fucking works, yeah.
I've eaten my hat. I've had this unfortunate choice of needing to burn the contractors that I've dealt with for years because I'm only putting in half of it, shut the company down, liquidate for some like one event that I've like, shit the bed on. Or pay everyone, cop it, and then I'm kind of running down this hill that I wasn't planning on running down. But now that I'm like in the hole, I may as well keep going because it's going to get better year 2. Usually, the first year is the worst year. Year 2 will be better. Fast forward to year 2, 4 times worse than year 1.
Was it the same mistakes that you made?
I changed a bunch of things. I changed the date. I like added to the lineup. I thought that I was making the right calls, but the market said no, and our ticket sales were like a third of what they were the first year. And these are big shows. Like if I'm budgeting 3,500, 3,700 break even on a 5,000 cap show and you've sold 1,000 tickets, those numbers are big numbers if you don't come close. So I was looking at it and I'm like, fuck. I've got 2 choices here. I blow up another 6 figures, which this time I don't have because I spent it all last time.
Yeah.
Being high on a much higher risk basis than I expected because the person who was supposed to take half of the risk has pissed off. Or I push along, tell everyone it's going to be fine. Maybe in some scenario it is fine, and like by some miracle it comes home and you sell thousands of tickets in the last week and you scrape by. But if it doesn't, then it's a much, much bigger problem. So I made the call to cancel it. And it's the first festival I've ever cancelled. It's the first show I've ever properly cancelled. I've gone for something big and blown up big. And that was Friday. So I've never spoken about the numbers until now.
Yeah. So I appreciate you being so honest.
Hopefully the ATO. For our American listeners, the ATO is pretty much the tax office.
Well, I mean, you got to give yourself time to obviously sit with this and hear you were saying off air that, it's easy logically to think about the solution here, but emotionally still very tied to it, right? Like that's a big blow, and maybe it just does take time, but you'll be out there in the world. You'll be doing something new or the same thing. Like it depends where you want to take it. Yeah,
I don't know where the challenge.
Have you read The Way of the Superior Man?
I have, and this is what I was going to talk to you about because
do you know the chapter I'm going to talk about?
I can't remember. Remind me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the number of the chapter, but there was a chapter about the onion. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah. So it's like,
oh, that's right. Yeah.
The Way of the Superior Man it talks a lot about like masculine and understanding how we operate, but also feminine energies. And that sounds vague and woo-woo, but there was this one chapter that talked about for a man, his purpose in life is kind of like an onion where every layer is a purpose at that point in time. And as you peel back the layers and move on from things, you get closer to your core purpose, your true purpose. And I actually read that and just instantly I was like, this is when I was running Brand Booster, I was like, that was like my purpose for the last 3-4 years. And I fulfilled most of what I wanted to get out of that. And I'm ready and I'm happy to move on from it. And that's when I stepped away from that into the e-commerce brand, which had been on the side for a couple of years. And I actually stepped away from a very similar situation, stepped away from that again to pursue this new thing. And that the first company, I just like closed doors on it. We just stopped accepting clients and just slowly wound it down. The second one, I had 50% in a sizable business and I just fully stepped away from it. I didn't sell it or anything. So my co-founder, he's rolling with it now and really enjoying that process. But that was serendipitous for me. That was it was an opportunity cost thing, but it kind of came from that chapter too, I'd say.
Yeah, I remember that chapter, and I remember I read this book probably March, April this year, and that was another reason why my producer suggested we reach out because of that video. You spoke about it, and it's like the exact same thing is going on right now.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny that you picked that up.
I've got this funny story as well on that book. At the time, I was in a relationship, and I wasn't understanding how to navigate the girl I was dating very well. Mm-hmm. And I've got a South African friend. Like he's a really cool guy, like model, very interesting, like very intelligent. And we're at this club in New York, and I'm explaining that I'm just having this like really tough time. There's all this stuff going on. And he looks at me and he's like, "Have you read the book, The Way of the Superior Man?" And I'm like, "Bro, I'm reading it right now. What the fuck?" And I'll never forget. It's etched into my brain. We're in the like balcony of this like New York skyline rooftop bar. And he's like, "Adam, women are not liars."
Yeah.
So yeah, that book's wild.
Dude, I heard you mention earlier on your order of what you consume in dating was like one part of that. And I was thought about it then as well, because it truly just allows you to understand. I think like everything just comes from a place of understanding. You can't be mad at someone. You can't, you can't be mad or angry at someone if you understand them. If you truly understood their exact situation, their exact context, what they know, you wouldn't be mad because you would understand, right? It wouldn't be a trigger anymore. So that's something Alex Hormozi also talks about.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard that somewhere where it was this idea of if you're angry, you don't understand them. You don't understand enough yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think there's a scenario where that doesn't play? Because I thought about this. I'm like, there's like, what happens with all these wars and all these people that are fighting and so angry at one another? Is there any scenario where with understanding all of that eventually goes away? And how do you get to understanding?
Well, in those situations, I guess it's like that's a large group understanding. That's many individual people that probably need that understanding. So harder to control, I imagine. But for yourself in your personal situations, and it doesn't feel like it. It's like when emotions are involved. I'm reading. Oh shoot! What am I reading now? I'm listening to it on Audible, and it's called "The Laws of Human Nature." Have you read that one?
No.
That one's good. That talks about some of this stuff too, and it talks about
who's it by?
The word? What's the guy's name? Robert Greene.
I was about to say, it sounds like a Robert Greene book.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Shoot, what was we might have to cut this little pause out. What was the premise I was trying to get to? Rationality. It's like when you can remove the emotion and truly, and that takes time and discipline, but like truly operate for the better good, not from emotional states, but rationality and understanding. It talks about it in that too. You kind of just pick up these things along the way.
What was the biggest lesson that you took out of that Way of the Superior Man book? Would you say The Onion?
Yeah, that was a big one. And also it's up to me. Like especially in relationship with a partner, it kind of is up to me if I can truly understand them, if I can truly show up how I'm meant to be showing up. The other one that is sometimes a controversial one for people who don't understand is that for a man, their mission and their purpose comes first before a relationship. That's something that a lot of people struggle with, though, especially for females in relationships, because they like naturally want to feel loved and that attention and that time and energy from their partner. But when the guy isn't truly fulfilling and walking the path they're meant to walk, they can't then give fully into a relationship because they're not fulfilled first in alignment here. And so that neither work. In that situation, nothing fucking works. And so when you can understand that dynamic and on both sides, but it's kind of the opposite for a female. They're more coming from a nurturing and loving and relationship side first. So you also need to understand that and be able to serve them in that way. So.
Do you know Man Talks by any chance?
Yeah, it rings a bell, yeah.
So I did an episode with him and he's all very, very deeply into the masculine and feminine kind of content. And I went down a bit of a rabbit hole because you'll get it at the end of this. So have a think about it now. Okay. I'm gonna ask you who you'd recommend
okay.
I talk to next. And when I met him, when I did the podcast with him, again, loved his work, cold DM'd him. He was keen. He loved the podcast. He passed me on to his friend who spent 30 days in a room in darkness, or 28 days in a room in darkness, and does a lot of men's work as well. And then he loved the episode. He passed me on to another guy who's like an equine therapist and does more men's work. And then he loved the podcast and passed me on to the guy who is the producer for TEDx Santa Barbara and used to work with Pixar, and his company did animation studio work, and they've gotten an Oscar and like just all this crazy shit, and also does men's work. So there's like 4 episodes of this podcast in a row where it's just like men's work.
Yeah, just rebrand now. Rebrand the podcast.
That one time with men. Oh, ridiculous. Anyway, so this is it's been funny because reading that book kind of got my frame of thinking right to deal with those guys and understand what they were talking about and provide insights that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So I feel like any guys listening to this, it's a banger of a book to read.
Yeah.
It's a banger. Let's jump back a little bit. I had something I wanted, a brief point that you touched on where you were working for 10 hours a day, making no money, doing it for a while. How did you stay motivated in that time period? Like what was going through your head?
I think that comes back to the clarity piece, like knowing that it's worthwhile. But that came from having enough reference points. It's like if you're working on something that's never been done before, et cetera, you're battling with like, is this even possible? As well as when, can I do this, et cetera. For me, most of the things I've done have already existed in some form. There's been people who've successfully done it in a certain space, and I'm able to come in and put my spin on it or something else. So when I was working at the time, I was basically like trying to start an agency. I was trying to run ads for people. I was trying to do this. I was just like, how do I like help gyms with their like I was like super right at the surface level, figuring out what I wanted to do, and that eventually made its way to the content creative agency. But during that time, I took a photo and a video. I remember this one time because I was like, I want to look back on this. I'm going to remember it, and it's funny how relevant it is now. But it was literally that fact. So I was living on Cocos at the time, and I would get up sort of 5 or 6 a.m. and I would just work until like midday and go for a surf with my brother. And there was some actual on the ground work I was doing to make a living and get by. But that like my morning was kind of my time for this. And I got on 30 or 40 calls with, at the time it was gyms trying to sell them, whatever I was trying to sell them.
So you, Alex.
Yeah. And it was like, nothing worked. Like I was young and naive and probably was not very convincing on the phone. I didn't know what I was selling probably. Anyway, and then, but it was like every call was like, yo, I'm getting one step closer to the one that says yes, and maybe that was on reflection. No, none of those guys did. I pivoted. I started running ads for e-commerce brands. There was one friend of a friend that said yes. They paid me $2,000 a month. Or it was less at the start, maybe $1,000 a month. To start running their ads. Yeah, I contracted. No, I did that myself at first. I just figured it out. I eventually contracted it out when I didn't want to do it myself. And then that was just one client, the one person that said yes, gave me a bit of confidence. And then it was kind of that period I was transitioning to the creative agency, and I just went in with full conviction. And my first technically official client paid me $8,000 a month, and I was doing like 20 videos, like high volume, figuring it out. And it was kind of a bit of a be willing to just fake it till you make it a little bit. Like I had skills, but I was still figuring it out, and then just be willing to put in the work to actually get to the point it needed to be. So those guys actually for 2 years straight paid us $8,000 a month. They were the cornerstone to the whole business working. And it was just, I think I almost had to go so far out of my comfort zone. $2,000 was like my limit. I was like, no way someone would ever pay more than this. And I went so far out and gave so much value on top of that, that it kind of worked. So, yeah.
I mean, I like the idea
your original
of
question, but
just staying motivated. But that was a good monologue. I really liked it. This is all part of the podcast. It's just like great stories. The going out of your comfort zone is the key in all of this. And random side note, but I've started doing the ice baths a little while ago. They've become a bit of a meme now, but I swear I was doing them before. They were cool.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. 2020. I started doing them, and I noticed that when I was basically the story was I was training for a half marathon and a marathon, and I was doing like cold therapy with like with like cold showers and stuff like that during the time. And I came across a couple of people I knew just like middle of winter during COVID, just like in the water. And I'm like, no one else is doing this. Great. I've finally got some people in my small town doing this. So I started joining them, and then they started getting one of those inflatable buckets and then some ice. And then we started doing ice baths, and there was 3 of us, and then it became 5 of us, and then it became 10 of us, and then it became 20, and then 30, and then it became a business. But
what was the business selling ice?
Doing
was more of a community thing.
Doing community ice baths. And
what was it called? The
Cold and Conscious.
Because we have something on the West Coast that's like somewhat similar. It's Cold Nips. I don't know if you've heard of it, but every Wednesday morning they'll just go for a sunrise swim and coffee, and then it kind of there was like ice baths and stuff. But now they get 600 or 700 people show up on a Wednesday morning.
Oh, I love it.
In the WA beaches. It's crazy.
I love it. Is it
friends of
free? I'm guessing it's free.
Yeah, it always was. Yeah, that's probably the transition that they're looking at, is finding ways to monetize that over time. But they've just been showing up. That good friends of mine, they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, and it just started from a handful of people just wanting to better themselves. So
yeah, I love it. And what I learned from it was the same fear and pain that I was about to feel when I was about to get in the cold water was the same fear that I would have when I'm about to pick up the phone to have an uncomfortable call. It's the exact same physical feeling.
Yeah, wow. I never thought of that.
Yeah, think about it. Next time you're about to have a cold shower.
I did cold showers for a few years. Ice baths, I've done a bunch, but I still get apprehensive over it now. Like, oh shit, I got to get in that thing. I got to battle demons for 2, 3, 4 minutes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. If you go back to what your body's telling you and the emotional sensations that you're feeling at the time when you're about to do that, next time you do it, feel it. And see if and then maybe see if it's the same feeling you feel when you're about to send make a risky phone call, or you've got to have a tough conversation with a partner or something. And my guess is that it's probably pretty close to or exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So what I liked about doing the ice baths and doing these kind of challenges was that you can practice getting used to that really discomforting feeling in a place where you still have control. So you can get comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Well, that's the science behind cold showers, right? It's like your body becomes more accustomed to that hard feeling, and then life and hard things that come up are easier to navigate. But I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I think it's hit a plateau for me though, because I think things are getting harder.
Yeah.
And I can only get to zero.
You're not ice bathing enough.
Yeah, I can only get to zero water.
Pivot the festival. Get 1,000 people in ice baths. That's the new.
I've thought about it. So the interesting thing for me right now is you mentioned that you knew you had a skill set. You knew you had a way that you could take that skill set and create leverage. And there's plenty of people that have done this before you that are successful. Right now, I have no fucking clue what my skill set is. I know a lot of random shit and I've done a bunch of random things, but I don't know how it all pieces together yet.
Well, maybe that's exactly it though. It's like those, uniquely, there's no one else in the world that has that unique skill set that you have, or the unique experiences that you've had. And yeah, maybe it's clarity on where that energy then goes to, but there's something you have that no one else has. So figure out what that is and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's people who have really very niche hobbies and stuff that no one wants. So I don't know if it's valuable yet. Yeah, so we'll find out. Hello Kitty, making custom Hello Kitty. I mean, there's probably a big market for that.
It's this is a whole tangent, other story, but I wouldn't discount niches. I would think a lot about that, because what might seem small and insignificant to us, for the Hello Kitty fans, is the world to them, and they would pay whatever for it. And there's hundreds of thousands of those people. We just don't realize it.
Wait, so what you're telling me is I should pivot into Hello Kitty parties?
Maybe that's the pivot. Yeah, maybe that's
and then I'll look back in 10 years and be like, I was on this phone call.
I just want a little bit of equity, 1% is fine.
Yeah, 1% is fine. That's fine. Happy with that. I want to go back into your new project. There was a point that you said you're working with lifestyle founders and you want to give them, I guess, the best opportunity to be as successful as possible and have a network of people around them. What makes somebody a lifestyle founder? Let's start there.
Lifestyle, my definition of it is you use your business as a vehicle to a life that you want to live. So you're not working because you have to work, you're working because you choose to work. And it's usually on your own terms. Also would be self-funded or maybe some strategic funding, but not any huge VC high growth backed thing. So you kind of, your ownership is there. And usually that comes with a balance of mental, physical, spiritual health. I probably like spending some time abroad, travel a bit, just value experiences and people. So there's kind of a handful of those things that play into how I would categorize a lifestyle founder, and they're really the people that we're looking at. Yeah.
And what kind of frameworks of the business would a successful lifestyle business look like?
How do you mean? Like what type of business?
What type of business? Like what type of revenue? Like what type of hours worked?
Good question. Our specific requirements is founders or businesses that have done over $500,000 within the last few years. So, the people, the average member probably sits at $4 million a year with their business. Again, I say these numbers, I've shared numbers candidly on this, but not so much because about the numbers, just helps people visualize and get a scale. But so that's a part of it. Like it's kind of established enough that like there is a market, there is a product that actively customers are buying. And otherwise, like industry specific, there isn't really one. A lot of like e-commerce guys kind of tend to be gravitating towards it because it's natural for them, and they're usually in e-commerce because they want to build lifestyle. But some like SaaS founders, a couple of agency guys, there's really a space for everyone.
I might have to. Can I join if I've had revenue above $500,000 last year?
This is the pitch. This is I just came on here to pitch you live, to be honest.
Yeah, sick. Let's do it. Well, why don't we see? We'll do a live pitch.
Oh my god, like Shark Tank kind of thing.
Yeah. What's that guy? The Stephen Bartlett. Maybe I can be the Australian Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah, maybe you can. Maybe that's your calling. Hello Kitty.
Maybe. I create an offshoot of Hello Kitty. And what do you think? You also mentioned that you want to work with people who want to create lives and livings that they can be proud of. What does that mean to you?
I believe, at least in my experience and probably what I've seen from a lot of people around me, is like, especially as like young people trying to make it online in business, oftentimes money is a driver for sure. Like it's something that like you want financial freedom, you want the ability to, do what you want to choose to do. And then you kind of get to a point where you're like, actually people kind of matter. And, there's other things that matter in life. And so you kind of come full circle and then, yes, you still need the financial support and backing to create opportunities, but it's probably more about the people you get to experience things with and how you can give back and a lot of these things as well. So, the ultimate lifestyle founder is someone who understands that and they've done that full circle loop and they're sort of back to that. But some people are still in that journey. They still need to make things initially and then come back to that. Maybe it's they're a first time founder and they've still got a few other projects coming in the years to come. So I'm still very much in that process too.
Yeah, I mean, money is the only important thing to me until I buy an island. And then once I bought the island, then I can look at everything
Maybe Cocos Island. If you buy that, I'll be over there with you.
How much do you think it'll cost?
Well, funny story. My ex-girlfriend, she's a Clooney's Ross, and that was the last family that basically owned the islands. Her grandfather was like the king of Cocos.
Jesus Christ.
But it was all like, that sounds very extravagant, but essentially...
Wait, so what you're saying is... He was the Coke King.
He was the Coke King. Yeah, I don't know how to put that way, but yeah. Actually, I met him a handful of times. He's passed away now, but the Coke King, yeah. That's a good one. And
what would happen if you said that to him?
He's a chiller. Actually, I think he'd be like, whatever. He was super switched on. Anyway, so then the islands, the government basically forced them out and bought the islands for... I bought it for $7 million, I think, but that was 50, 60 years ago. And that was very undervalued because they were just pushing them out. So I don't actually know what something like that would be worth today, but I imagine you need a few pennies.
That's wild. Well, there we go. You'll maybe you can buy it back one day.
Yeah.
Get to $500 million by the island.
You can't see it, but I've got a vision board up here, and one of them, there's a picture of Cocos because I want to own a home on Cocos at some stage. And when I was explaining it to my brother and my friends who kind of live around in the same complex, they just looked at the photo and like, you want to own Cocos? I'm like, no, I don't want to own the island. I just want to own on the island. I just want to own a home.
Yeah.
But who knows what will happen.
Well, I mean, it's all achievable. As you said, other people have done it before us. So
true.
Just just next time instead of losing 120,000, you'll be losing $1 million, but the year after you'll be making two.
Yeah.
Full scale, right?
Yeah.
Just at some point it just becomes relative numbers. Haven't quite detached yet, but apparently that's how it feels.
It's still fresh.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Maybe, hopefully. I'd love to chat to you a bit because I'm conscious of your time, and we'll wrap it up soon. Before that, you mentioned some of the science behind content creation. Do you have any? I'd love to chat about some insights and lessons you've learned over the years. I know it's quite broad, but we can start there and dig into a little bit further.
Yeah.
What's kind of the a few key, like 3 key things that you've noticed in your content development career so far that you could impart to the listeners?
One thing that comes to mind straight away is something that Alex Hormozi speaks about, and it's this input-output equation. I don't know if you've heard about that, but essentially Alex was like, okay, I want to take building personal brand more seriously. He was posting once a day. He knew a guy that was very good in that space. You know, he built a really established personal brand. He went to the guy and he goes, hey man, like, do you have any advice for me? And he goes, how often are you posting? He's like, oh, once a day. He goes, oh, once a day. Cool. And Alex is like, okay, clearly I need to be doing more than that. Thanks, bye. And the takeaway wasn't so much post more than once a day. The takeaway was actually when your input increases. So say he went from posting once a day to 7 times a day, but that's across different platforms, different mediums. It wasn't just like 7 different videos. And so his input went from 1 to 7. His output, call it growing a following, etc., went from it didn't go up 7 times, it went up 49 times. So it was not linear. And I think that's the thing, because what happens when you start putting more shots on the board is you get a much quicker feedback loop. You could see what people react to and why, and then you can do more of those things. But also it is quite literally just giving yourself more chances of that one that hits big. And that's usually the one that makes most of the progress. So it has been, I think, the case for me. I've done my personal brand has been one thing, but we used to shoot a lot of content for e-commerce brands back in the day, and it was down to a science. There was certain forms that just worked almost every single time. But that you had to go through the 100 that didn't work to figure that out. And that's different for every industry and every niche. And so it's hard to give like a blanket, but that's why I say it's so important to consume, but consume with intent and consume the people. Like when I scroll on TikTok and stuff and I go to people's profile, I actually just don't watch videos unless I will only watch the higher viewed videos, because then I'm only consuming content that has some sort of like performance element to it. And then my brain is getting wired to think more like that. So, it's a huge element of that. So input output equation is like a huge one. Just put more out in the world, make a system around it. And also I would say a lot of people get caught up on like, what am I going to caption this? And what's the hashtag strategy and this other stuff. I'm like, if the content's good enough, it'll work. Or if it doesn't work, but it shows signs of working, post it again 3 months later like I did, and it'll work. So focus more on the story that you're telling and the emotion that you're creating from people. And the final thing I'll say is a question for you. What do you think is the most important metric when it comes to, say, viral content? I'm talking more specifically videos here, but like, likes, comments, engagements, like all that stuff. What do you think is the most important?
I'm guessing like the shares on the little DM share.
Relevant because it gets more eyeballs, but the most important is watch time. It's like, what is I don't know if you can hear that siren behind me.
Yeah, it's fine. No, you're good.
Is watch time, because if you have a video that people want to watch all the way through, it is a sure tell sign that they enjoyed the video. You're telling the platform, whatever platform you're posting on, hey, my content is consumable. People like this thing, so they're going to want to show more people that content. So the higher the watch time, the better. Even more than that, when they watch the whole video, they go to your profile and they watch more videos. Think about the social media platform. They want consumers to stay on their platform. That's what they're built for. They want people to stay and consume. So if they're doing that as a result of your content, you're basically giving the social media platform, exactly what they want, they're going to reward you for it. So thinking about it in that sense, and Mr. Beast talks a lot about this from a content perspective, how to keep things engaging, how to start with the right hooks to keep them to stay all the way to the end. Don't give them the win until the end so they actually watch the whole thing. There's many little micro hacks that you can do as well.
Do you think there's a trade-off between, because I mean, early stages of content creators, using myself for an example with the podcast, I'm noticing there's a resource trade-off between quality and quantity. And I've been having, I mean, he'll listen to this and laugh, but I've been having this argument with my producer on this. And I went down the route of, I heard the Alex Hormozi approach of just like pushing out content. And I tried that with the low input kind of amount. So the low amount of time that I had to do it resulted in the content not being of a standard that hurt the brand more than if, say, Joe, my producer, did three pieces that were higher quality and more congruent to the brand. So what do you think about the trade-off between just volume versus quality? And Mr. Beast is another example. He posts quality
once a week or once a month now, right? Because he just wants to create the greatest videos on earth. And I would lean, I mean, in your scenario, I would say you probably need to put more time in, and your input was probably on the actual, like, creating the content, like the very first step, rather than just putting out more edits. Because I do think output is important. Like, not output, sorry. I do think it's just important to put more out in the world. But there has to be a level of like real thought that's gone into the strategy before doing that. And, it's probably worthwhile spending an extra hour trolling through your podcast and your content to find that one hook that's actually going to work and get attention and really be meaningful than just putting out 7 okay ones that, like, I don't know, it might actually be more beneficial for you. So my argument in that scenario is just make more of the better hooks, so you have more.
Just do better.
Post, and then but it's a balance. You figure it out just by doing it more often, and you've, like, that's your experience now. You've seen that. Okay, probably not going to keep doing this low quality, high input. I'm going to switch it up, but still keep the input high.
Yeah, for sure. I think it will feed on itself. The moment this thing has some positive feedback outside of very one-to-one interactions, which is where it's at right now. It's at there's one DM that'll say, I love this, and you're like, great. And then it's, a little while later, it's another one. It's like, I love this. And it's very slow, but I think these things start off very slow, especially on the podcast front. And then they, at some point, just go bang. You just have to survive.
What's
long
the goal
enough
with the pod?
So the goal for me is there's 2 goals. So basically I began to realize about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago that whenever I was around people for a longer period of time, so let's just say a partner, maybe my sister, housemates, majority of the time, those people, just through being around me, would begin to change the way they interacted with the world for the positive. I might have an offhanded conversation with somebody, and then I don't think anything of it, and the next they come back to me 3 months later and go, that conversation with you, I completely changed everything I did in my life. And I go, okay, interesting. And it happened once, it happened another time, and it kept happening to the point where the easiest one to show it was my romantic relationships. That they're probably the closest people to me outside of housemates. And consistently they'll come back to me over time and go, oh yeah, that time with you was integral to my growth as a human. So thank you. And now I've met the man of my dreams and I'm happy. But that's a whole other thing. So I thought, holy shit.
I thought you were talking about yourself for a second. I was like, hold on, that's backwards.
No, the next guy. I'm like, good luck, Chuck. And I'm fine with that. It's my place in the world. I'm cool. That's good. As long as I'm serving. Yeah, I'm just serving the world. But the point I was going to make was when this began to happen a lot, I began to realize that there's something here. Whatever the fuck I'm doing, whatever way I approach the world, there's something here that has positive impact to the world. And I thought, I can't just be like the one-to-one interactions aren't enough. So how do I do this at more scale? And then I thought, okay, well, I got to go into content and media, but then short form content, it doesn't inspire me. It's something, it's a grind. To date, I haven't found something where I wake up every morning and go, fuck yeah, I'm going to make that piece of content. It's going to be sick. I'm like, I've said I'd do this, but I can't be fucked. And have with a podcast, we sit here for an hour and 15 minutes and this could go for 3 hours if I let it. Like I'm sure we could just keep chatting. And I feel energized and we communicate in a way that allows us to get in flow, and through that flow, like downloads and insights from whatever else is going on in the world, in the universe, come through me and probably through you, in some moments there. So to answer your question, my goal is to scale the ability to provide those genuine changes for people around me. So on a specific measurable level, the goal is to get to 1 million subs, because then that means I'm interacting and connecting with 1 million people that maybe will connect with another million themselves or another 10 million. And hopefully that means that I'm making a small but meaningful impact on the world.
I love that. Mine's actually the same tangible goal, like audience or community of 1 million people across channels this year. And, podcasts, I commend that because that's like a huge mission to have and takes a lot of energy, especially with the podcast. But I also agree with the offhanded conversations and how that changes people's lives. And interesting, you said it yourself, it might have been something that happened years ago and you actually don't remember. My dad being a school teacher, that was a few times over the years where he's had a previous student reach out like 15, 20 years later and say, hey, I just want you to know, this thing happened and I thought I was going to get scolded for it and you showed me compassion and you took this approach and I want to thank you for that. And it was like something that has stuck with him 20 years later. It's like crazy to think. Yeah,
it's wild what I feel like in those moments it's not really us. We're just a conduit of information for something that person needed at that moment. Totally. And some people have a good way of connecting to that source of information without sounding like too woo-woo about it. But I think that's the core of it. So for whatever reason, the combination of my life experiences have led me to be able to connect with people well. We'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. We'll see. Let's see how a year goes. We're about 6 months in and it's slow, but we're making consistent progress, which is really nice. I wanted to rapid fire a few things. Do you mind if we jump in a few rapid fire tail end questions? Let's do it. Sick. What's your ideal morning and evening routines?
Ideal would be a Monday because I love Mondays. And I'd be up 5-ish, just before 5, get to the gym by 5:30 because I don't think you can have a bad day when you do hard things first thing in the morning. Smash a avo egg on toast, specifically on rosemary and potato sourdough bread that like slaps.
Very specific.
It's just my thing at the moment. And then like lock into some like serious work, focused work, and then have balance throughout the day as well. I know you asked about morning and evening routine, not the whole day, but
it's fun.
Go out and do things that are fun too, and play some sports and spend time with partner and people that I love. And evening routine would be no phone for at least an hour before bed, and spending time like lights down, like lower lights. I don't know if you know the science behind that, but not like bright overhead lights. And probably some journaling and stretching as well. I tend to stretch every morning and night just to get the body limber and feeling good. So those are some key things for me. Drink a lot of water too.
Yeah, nice. I actually interviewed the founder of Block Blue Light.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, so we've got an episode. Yeah, so we went into all of that, and that's I think a high 7-figure business now. Like he's crushing.
Mm.
And we talked about light. We talked about all that sort of stuff. So, and yeah, so I fully get the light element. Everywhere in my house, I've got salt lamps because they're just a nice warm hue.
Yeah.
But it's funny. And I've got my these bad boys.
Oh wow, they're red as.
Yeah, well, that's what you should be using at night if you're on a computer or
I've got
looking at a screen.
Like my screen I've turned as red as it can go, but even then, it's just
still pretty bright, right?
Yeah.
So I wear these most nights. Sometimes when I'm out, people think they're cool, but I'm just actually being functional.
Yeah. I'm going to sleep so well tonight.
It's crazy. But yeah, it's funny. My housemate will come in and I'll be in the dark with these red light glasses on just on my laptop. He's like the fucking vampire. Sleeping great though.
That's amazing.
Do you meditate?
So that's something I got into kind of in the last year or 6 months, and that's just 10 minutes in the morning. So it's like a token gesture, but enough to like get into flow for the day.
Hey, it's 10 minutes is better than no minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
So I highly recommend that as a habit to develop.
And that was something I really struggled. Like I was like, my mind would race. I was like, I'm just not a meditator. I just wasn't part of my identity. But 10 minutes, like quite literally, you can always find time for 10 minutes. It's such a small window of time.
What do you think was causing your mind to race?
To be honest, it was probably just an excuse for I don't want to meditate. So I would just tell myself that, or I would tell myself that I can't sit still, or my back hurts if I sit cross-legged, or whatever. Like it was just me coming up with excuses.
And what's changed now?
I don't know what the switch was. My co-founder with the brand, I spent some time with him over in Europe, and then we went to India together to see a manufacturer. And during that time, I knew he did this, but then I kind of got to see it firsthand, and he was just so radically consistent. I feel like I said radically a lot in this episode.
That's all right. I haven't thought of it, so it's all you.
Okay. Well, now you're gonna think of it. And he would do just the 10 minutes, and I've always seen how present and focused he is, and it's a quality I admired in him and wanted to embody myself. So maybe I tied the meditation to that, and that's why it sort of got me over the hump.
I mean, it probably plays a part in it for sure. For sure. I mean, I've talked about it a lot on the podcast, but my experience with meditating, it was like one of the most fundamental life shifting things I've done. It took me from being unable to hold eye contact and highly, highly, highly anxious to the point of panic attacks, and it began to unwind all of that. And it only began with 10 minutes a day. So
what do you do now?
It's just 20 minutes a day. Like 10 to 20 minutes a day. Like it's not a big complex beast that you need to consider. So even the idea of you saying it's a token gesture, it's not a token gesture. It's everything. So if it's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. I love it. And all I do is I sit there, I focus on my breath, I notice my thoughts. And I don't know if you've kind of gone down the thought process, the understanding of your thoughts and that whole element. Have you dug into that much?
Yeah, and like how that shows up in the world. But when we were kids, our mum used to, we'd be driving to the sports carnival at school, and she'd be like, okay, kids, everyone close your eyes and just like visualize this golden light comes through your head, and then you're running your race and you're winning the race. And it was like, we're like, yeah, whatever, mum. Like we just did it because we thought it was normal. But not so relevant for the race. I never really won many of the races, but just the concept of putting an intention out in the world, and then having that created in reality over time.
That's interesting. You've got, I think your mum got it. She got it. Yeah. Brilliant. I definitely didn't have my mum saying any of that sort of stuff. So
I mean, like I said, like how intertwined our childhood is with how we end up as adults is crazy.
Definitely. Going back quickly on your inability to meditate, just as like a final comment, for some context, I've done over the years, I did this like 60 minutes for 60 days.
Oh, wow.
Meditation challenge. There's a guy called Naval.
Naval Ravikant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was his approach to meditating.
Yeah.
And I did that. So, and then I did a Vipassana in August, which
Wow.
do you know?
Yeah,
so
like
I've done silent
right?
10 days, 12
Dark
hours
too?
a day meditating. No, not dark. No, just silent. No, no reading, no writing, no eye contact, like nothing, no phones, 12 hours a day of meditating up at 4:30 in the morning. It's like a whole thing. And even with all of that and meditating most days since 23 or 22, my mind keeps racing. So it's never going to stop. And that's okay. So anyone that says to me, my mind is racing, I'm not a meditator, that needs to just flip to there's yourself and there's your mind, and your mind will be racing, and let yourself observe your mind racing and let it observe it with some humor and a little bit of maybe equanimity, and just maybe sitting to yourself and going, oh, look at that silly little thing over there, just ruminating about everything. And then eventually you'll hit a point where it stops. You haven't done anything. You haven't changed anything. You've just been sitting there. It's like your mind just goes through the Rolodex of information until it runs out of things to think about.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Or at least for that point in time. Yeah.
For that point in time.
And just don't feel like you have to. A lot of people think you have to be like so centered and you can't think of anything else and you just must be blank. Like just let your mind wander and then it comes back to stillness.
Yeah. And it's just understanding, you focus with intent on the point that you're focusing on, be it your thoughts or be it your breath or whatever you're focusing on, and just inevitably know it's going to wander. And when it wanders, for some period of time, it could be a minute, it could be 5 seconds, it could be 10 minutes, who knows? You'll get caught up in the stories that you're telling yourself through those thoughts. And then at some point, inevitably, you realize that you've been caught up in the thoughts. And then the process of going back from that thought, understanding it, and moving back into, I'm going to make a decision to go back to what I was focusing on, which was my breath or my body or my sense, whatever it is. It's irrelevant. That is the meditation technique. That is the rep. That is the bench press. That is the squat. That is the move. And then you do it again, and you do it again. You do it again. And eventually you'll get to a point where it becomes quicker. It doesn't take 10 minutes. It takes 2. It doesn't take 2 minutes. It takes 1. Or you're observing your mind going off on a tangent and you're letting it go off on its tangent, but you're not getting caught up in it. You're like, all right, I'll just be over here. You do that. Come back when you're ready.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So, yeah, I mean, it takes some time to get to that point. And I mean, I'm not there all the time either, especially right now. It's been, I'm getting caught up in my own fucking melodrama. But it's good
Is it the Buddha that says, I meditate 2 hours a day, but on super busy days, I meditate for 4? I don't have time for
I understand.
And that was, I forget who said that. Was it Buddha? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I understand. Yeah. I understand. If you need, I've heard a similar thing of like, if you say you don't have 10 minutes to meditate a day, you actually need 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So moving on to the rapid fires, that was not so rapid.
That was just as long as the rest of it. Yeah.
All right, let's bang them out. Get you out of here. Yeah, let's do it. What's been your favorite failure? That's probably not a good one.
Yeah, I've spoken about this, but there's one thing that comes to mind. I used to make YouTube videos 5 or 6 years ago, and one time I was like fishing and I like hooked onto a shark, and then the shark got away, and I was like, oh, I lost a shark and whatever. I wasn't even planning to keep it, but I said something like, oh, that was a failure. And my dad just turned around and he goes, never a failure, mate. It's just an experience. And I was like, that was one thing that's stuck with me since. It's still on YouTube, so that came up.
What a legend. I love that. It sounds like you have some great parents that just kind of got it.
Yeah, they planted seeds, I think, early enough and wanted more for us than they had. So
yeah, those damn teachers.
Yeah, I know.
What advice would you give yourself from 10 years ago?
You usually know the answer, you're just not willing to act on it.
Can you stop that? Stop calling me out.
Yeah, act sooner. Act sooner.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, damn. Moving on. Has there been a moment, person, or experience that's changed your life or shaped you materially that you can recall?
I feel like it would be a disservice not to say my parents in this situation, having credited them to many things so far.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Maybe you should call them and say thank you after this.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah. All right. Just let me know. Just loop back in once you've done that.
Yeah.
If you could only recommend one book, podcast, or experience for someone to do for their whole lifetime, they can only do this one thing and that's it. And it has to have the most material impact in their life. What would it be?
Oh, shoot. I think it depends a lot on your stage of life and career and passion. Like when you talk about a podcast or something or a book, that they hit based on what you're focusing on. But the way you framed that question makes me think more like spend time out in the world, like book a one-way flight and actually don't have a plan, because you just have so much worldly knowledge that comes from that, the people you meet, the way that your mind is open, the sitting in discomfort, all the shit that goes wrong along that way. I think that's going to best equip you if it's something you have to do your whole life. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. That's a very broad, solid answer. Good. Yeah, nice. Have you read the tweet, the How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky tweet storm by Naval?
Yes, I have.
That would be mine. That thing is
insane.
That's
good. Yeah.
The podcast version of that, when I listened to that for the first time, it blew my actual mind.
I've done that. So I read Naval's book and then I've listened to the pod summary version of that a couple of times since. But that's a good reminder. I think that was a year and a half ago, so I need to do it again.
It's crazy that thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever listened to something that just constantly just punched me in the face with knowledge.
You sound just like Cammy, my co-founder. He's read the book, I swear, 7 or 8 times. And usually I'm like, hey, what are you doing today? Oh, listen to the Naval book. I was like, hey, again, but it just hits every time. Yeah.
So good. And look, if someone wanted to change something in their life today to begin to live a life similar to yours, what would that be?
I would say, first of all, be yourself. Don't try to be like me. But if you wanted to change, complete environment shift, kind of what I was saying about traveling, it's so difficult to change in a big way when you're in the same routine, around the same people, in the same cues and same habits. Even if all your intention is there and your discipline, you just revert back to old habits. So change in a big way. And then second part to that would be, I'm going to use the word radical again, radical honesty, because first with yourself and then with other people, because you're not serving anyone by telling half truths or lying. So just be as honest as you possibly can.
Sounds good. And final question for the podcast. What do you think the meaning of life is?
Final question. The only question really, when you think about it. For me, it is to live, to exist, to that journey of life, to in many ways stop searching for achievement and be okay with that infinite game of life and the journey. Part of the reason my handle on social is Jaya Journeys is kind of a testament to that. So, but that's also something that, I haven't always thought. There were times where I was for sure chasing achievement and still am in many ways, but enjoy that process and live while you do it.
So just living your life as best as possible, enjoying the process of whatever life brings you.
Yeah. Great advice.
Brilliant. Love it. Live radically.
Just don't die.
Yeah, just do better. I love it. Yeah. So living life, just to recap it, just living life, enjoying whatever the life experience is, just flowing with whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Good, bad, positive, negative.
The infinite game, like the fact that it is always going to exist, so stop trying to work towards something and just work towards enjoying the entire process.
Sounds good, Jai. Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Adam.
you coming on the pod.
Yeah,
awesome.
man, this has been fun.
I love it.